Good morning, everybody. It's Kim here from Kim's Homestead. How are you all? Well, as promised, here is week 1 of the Pantry Challenge meals, finished up by a little fruit shop. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, to start over with is Wednesday, and I'm starting off with lunchtime. It's just going to be a simple ham and lettuce sandwich. I only managed about half of that sandwich because it was absolutely huge. Just cutting out the lettuce there and placing it on top with a little bit of salt and pepper. Delicious. Got to get rid of that leftover ham. Now, these bits here are just the rind, and yeah, there's a little bit of meat, but not that much. It's very fatty, so yes, I know there's a lot I can do with it, but frankly at the moment I'm just not eating it, so it's no good preserving it. So I thought I would give it to my chickens as a nice little Christmas present for them, and give them a bit of a protein boost to help their new feathers come in. And I'm sure they will enjoy it. And into the chook bucket it all goes. And tell them they thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, this is what I normally give the cats at night time. This is their nighttime ritual. They get half of a sachet of wet cat food and half a little packet of minced meat, which is all mixed together. Now, the varieties differ from day to day, so they're not given exactly the same thing every single day, because I'd hate to eat steak every day. And here we are with that ham again, and lunch today is just going to be a couple of slices of ham. Actually, this is tea time. That's right. Tea time was ham with some leftover Christmas wine. Thursday. Today I decided to put together a nice big garden salad. I had some veggies in the fridge that needed to be used, so I decided to make a nice big salad, and I could just have that whenever I felt like it, whether it be for lunch or for tea, with some of that ham that was still left over. And once again into the chook bucket with the scraps, and they thoroughly enjoyed them as well. The leftover capsicum that I had, I just decided to chop into small squares and put it in the freezer for later use, and that way it doesn't go off. And when I'm having or cooking tea, I've got capsicum already chopped up, ready to go in whatever meal that I'm making for that day. It made roughly about a half a Ziploc bag full, which is probably about 3 or 4 meals, which is good. Into the bowl with the cherry tomatoes. Here I had some celery. It was starting to go pretty manky by this stage, but I decided to see what I could save. Give it a good wash under a cold tap. The ends were quite bad, but the middles weren't too bad, and I usually like to peel my celery, as I don't like those great big stringy bits. They get stuck in the teeth. So some went in the salad, and the rest I usually put into a little Ziploc bag once again and freeze it. It can either go into stocks, soups, stews, anything like that I'm going to be making at a later date. The old peeler is getting a bit clogged up by now. Nearly done. Only got a couple more sticks to go and it's all done. Now it's time for a bit of carrot. And this was the last of the bean shoots. Time to give it a bit of a stir up. And now for some onions. And yes, these were some of the onions I grew. They were small, but they were very tasty. Give them a bit of a wash that dirt off. Wipe my board. and I just chopped them into half rounds. Now I'm making a separate bowl for tea for later on that evening. I overloaded the bowl a little bit, like by a lot. Time to take a bit out, I think. Even then it was still too much, way too much. But that's all right, I had plenty there, and the chooks enjoyed the leftovers. Now time to bag up that celery and put it into the freezer. Whoops, overboard. Right, Thursday lunch, and it's just going to be a very simple lunch today, which is just salada biscuits and Vegemite and a glass of juice. Let's see if I can hold it down. Been having a lot of problems holding down anything lately. So most of what I've had this week has come back up. And there's the juice. Once again, I had salad for tea. Friday, back into the ham again. And a nice salad for dinner. Whoops. Now the rind was a little bit still too hard on the cucumber, so I decided to chop it off. Cut up the ham. I added the last of the cottage cheese. That was a very nice cottage cheese too. It had spring onions in it and some good old beetroot. Very tasty. And for tea was just, Saturday was just a ham bone. Now I went and picked a few things from the garden, and it was time to do something with them. The tomatoes I just decided to wash and leave over by the stove on a mat. Let them air dry and ripen up just a little bit more. splash of vinegar in with them. Stops any bugs and stops them going off anymore. Now to deal with the last of the corn. It was a reasonable amount. This was the corn that was planted down in the ground. I wasn't as happy with this corn as I was with the corn in the raised bed. I had a lot better luck with pollination in the one in the bed down near the chooks. This one here was hard to get to because of the tripid pumpkin I've got down there. So the pollination was a bit spotty, but I was still able to get quite a few decent corn cobs out of it. And the rest, with only one or two, I just popped off the corn kernels, popped them in the fridge with a bit of water, and I've been having them each night with another vegetable with tea. This lot of corn here, once I got it all shucked and put into a bag, I took around to my eldest son and his family, which I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed. I didn't need any more because I've got quite a lot in the freezer already. Saturday. Now, Saturday, I wasn't feeling all that great, so I just decided on a very simple tea, which was just an egg on toast with a little bit of tomato and onion. I didn't bother with any lunch. So once it was in the pot, I just popped it onto the stove and let it heat up. And while it was heating, I mashed it all together. In the meantime, I got some toast going while the eggs were cooking. I decided on this burner to begin with while I heated up some oil, but I soon found that element was a little bit too big for the pan I was using. I'm still learning how to use this stove top. I think the video of the new stove top and the oven is coming up next, actually. So I change it over to the back burner and pop in the eggs. Time to give the tomatoes a bit of a smash. This is really a 5-minute meal. It doesn't take very long at all. Bit of salt and pepper. You can add other seasonings, but my stomach wasn't feeling very well, so I didn't want to overload it too much. All done, ready to dish up. There we go, toast is cooked. On goes the egg. And on goes the tomato and onion. Beautiful. Sunday. Okay, Sunday I decided to pull out one of those small meatloaves that I made up. Make meatloaf for a year? Well, I think I made it for 3 years. So I had a packet of that and I decided to make up a little meatloaf, some chips and a bit of tomato and onion over the meatloaf. Went out and dug up a few small potatoes out of the pots that I had. And time to chop up an onion. I just decided to chop it in half and place it on top of the meatloaf. And now with a tomato. Chop out a couple of splits and yucky bits. And there we go. Just shove it on top. Now it's time to put some foil over the top. Bit of salt and pepper first. And just let it bake in the oven for about 20 minutes. There's the corn that I separated off of the husks. A little bit into the pot, fresh water into the container and back into the fridge. Now with this one we're using some beans. By the time they're done, the meatloaf will be cooked. And here we are serving it up. About half an hour and tea was done. And there we go. Monday, I decided to have a chop with some veggies. So we had chopped carrot, and I had a lovely pork chop all thawed out. And once again, I'm using those bits of corn, some fresh water before going back into the fridge. Some beans as well. Right, there's the pork chop. And I just cut off a little bit of a snippet for myself. Here's the mixed veggies all done. And I also cooked up some of the really small potatoes that I had dug up. It's a good way to get rid of your little potatoes. Tuesday, and yes, Princess Patches wanted to have a look and see what I was doing. She just refused to get off the chair unless I brought her up to the counter. Take your time. Big stretch. She likes to see what I'm doing. Time to deal with all these tomatoes. I had thought about making some salsa, but I still wasn't feeling all the best, so I decided to just chop them up small and make diced tomatoes out of the lot. I got more tomatoes coming on, so I can always make salsa later on. Some of them weren't going through the little chopper too well. They were getting a bit mushy. And yeah, Patches gets her nose squirted by tomato juice. That got her off the chair. Some of them were getting quite squishy at this point. So that's one of the main reasons why I decided not to bother with salsa. I'd wait until I'd harvested some that were a bit firmer. Yep, they got me. Tomato juice everywhere. Right, now it's time to can them, and I put in a tablespoonful of lemon juice, filled up the jar, and debubbled and worked it all the way down so it filled the jar about 1 inch from the top. Some jars were a little over full, so I transferred what was left into the next jar. Working with tomatoes is a terribly messy job. Here I've got to put down a piece of paper towel just to help stop the drips. So now it's time to wipe all the tops and put my 4 jars lids on. I ended up with 8 of the large jars, or pint-sized jars I should say, and 2 of the, I don't know what ounce they, 250 ounce, something like that, and another half to 3/4 of mainly juice. So that one's gone into the fridge, and I'll have it one night when I'm making tea. Unfortunately, I did lose one of the pint jars and one of the smaller jars. When I processed it, the lids unscrewed and came off, which is a bit of a shame after all this work, but that's what happens. Right, into the bubble bath they all go. And they were processed for 20 minutes in the water bath. And filling the canner, just topping it up. Now it was filled with cold water because the product was cold. Now I've got some cream from Christmas, and as there's no way I'm going to use all that cream, it was supposed to be for the pavlova, but didn't get used, so I decided to make some butter out of it. Now I probably should have pulled it out of the fridge a lot sooner and let the cream come to room temperature, but I didn't. It certainly creamed up fairly well and made a lovely cream, like whipped cream. But when it came to making the actual butter, it took a long time, a lot longer than it should have. And I'm pretty sure because the cream was actually cold rather than room temperature. Here we go, it's coming up and making lovely whipped cream. Now if I had some scones, this would be perfect. Maybe a banana sundae. Yum. Now I'm going to change it over to my whipping jug because as you see there's cream going everywhere. That sort of keeps it all contained. I'm just checking the time on the tomatoes that are in the canner bubbling away. They just come to the boil and it was time to confirm what time that they had to process for. Time to clean up my mess a little bit. Once the whey starts to separate, or the buttercream starts to separate from the butter, it's usually not too long before the butter starts to form. That's what's happening here. See the beater's having a hard time? That's because the chunks of butter have formed. Now it's time to squeeze it all out and make butter. First I've got to try and find a way to pour off the buttercream. There's the tomatoes all done. Okay, so after all the canning today, I did a little grocery shopping for some fresh veggies and mainly fruit really. I did pick up a packet of tofu because I'm having a real problem eating any protein at all. So I thought that might help. I picked up some bananas, some ripe ones and some green ones so they don't all go ripe at once. Some nice little grapes. Packet of hot cross buns. Some apples. Some peaches. Some lovely pears. Some bok choy. And some mushrooms. Okay, it's future self here. Yeah, don't look at the hair. The cost of those groceries came to $49.58. For that little bit of fruit and veggies, you can say nearly $50. So, back to your scheduled program. Now, I was going to cook a nice tofu honey soy stir fry tonight, which would have been really nice. But as I said, I'm having a hard time at the moment keeping anything down. And while I was out, I got a wrap with just ham and a little bit of salad, mainly carrot and lettuce. I didn't eat any of the wrap itself, just the salad, and I've just thrown that up. So I won't be bothering with tea tonight, so instead I'm going to download what I've had for the week, and you should hopefully get this early Wednesday morning. So I hope you enjoyed the first week of the Pantry Challenge. And yes, fresh veggies was included in what I'm allowed to go down and buy. So I'm signing off now, and I hope you find what I've got here useful to you. And if you like it, give me a big thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more of this content, I'll have one out every Wednesday for you, what I've cooked and had through the week. And I hope you enjoy it. All right, bye friends.